Video 2. What is continuous improvement? Continuous improvement has lots of definitions on the internet, but a simple one is this. Continuous improvement is an ongoing process of improvement and innovation that relies on making small, methodical changes until a desired result is achieved. It allows you to make these small incremental tweaks instead of creating wholesale changes or starting a brand new process over, especially when you're in the midst of a school year or you're trying to slowly bring staff along to a new way of doing business. What you really hope will happen is that you'll find through these process of small changes that you can find a breakthrough, and that breakthrough will then set off a virtuous cycle of improvement. One example might be finding a teaching strategy that has worked very well with a small subset of students and then being able to then translate it to a larger group of students, say in an inclusive setting as opposed to a pull-out setting, so that you can then set off a wave of student improvement that you didn't know you were going to be able to try and achieve before. You might be thinking, I use data in my school. We have data meetings. We have a data wall. Aren't I already doing continuous improvement? Well, maybe. Well, you'll know if you're doing continuous improvement if you're adhering to 6 principles. 1, you're letting small changes drive improvement. It could be a planning step, it could be an instructional strategy step that you change, or it could be your data follow-up. But what you're doing is you're changing small things one at a time so as not to overwhelm anybody with the degree of change, and letting those iterative changes do the work of driving the improvement. Also, you have to make sure that your employees are helping inform the analysis of the problem. That could be teachers, it could be paraprofessionals, it could be related service providers, or anyone else who is working with you to try and implement the solution that you're describing. You also want them to implement the changes. This is not a situation where a leader goes it alone. Also, you want to make small changes instead of one big change. As we said, one of the virtues of continuous improvement is it allows you to change slowly over time at a more manageable pace as opposed to a wholesale change effort that would require stopping some things and going through professional development, etc. Instead, what you're able to do is use just-in-time coaching during regular check-ins or during teacher observation feedback meetings that you're able to influence behavior. Next, the improvement requires reflection. What did we do? Did it work? Can we replicate this? These are the kinds of reflective questions that you want to make sure that you're asking as you work on continuous improvement. And finally, your changes need to be measurable. If you're not doing data, if you're not measuring how many times you tried a strategy, if you're not checking to see whether or not the students' scores went up on an interim, not a 9-week interim, but every 2 weeks, or on a single lesson, then you're probably not doing continuous improvement. You might be wondering if continuous improvement is a good fit for your school. Well, if you implement it thoroughly, it can exist within the systems and structures that you already have in place. And the folks that you already have working with you can do this as well. There's several virtues to continuous improvement that make it an easy fit in most schools. 1, it's bottom-up nature. So you're really working from the classroom out. What happens in the classroom is usually at the center of any continuous improvement process in a school. 2, the small changes over time are measurable. We're not looking for a big win right now. We're looking for small cumulative wins. And so that lends itself to the very nature of teaching. Next, it fits within your constraining structures. You can work on the strategy for a quarter. You can work on the strategy between data cycles. You can work on the strategy with a small group of people, say on a teacher team. So these are constraining structures that actually are a good fit. Your pre-existing initiatives can all be measured through continuous improvement, whether you're trying to decrease suspensions, increase student engagement, or shift reading instruction. in a more positive direction, you're probably going to be able to identify data points that you can examine, reflect on, and then change your strategies using a continuous improvement strategy. Then finally, as we said, the data cycles line up well with continuous improvement. It gives you a rhythm to establish a cadence for looking at data and reflecting that can lend to a virtuous cycle of improvement.